Very generous introduction. May God forgive you for your lies. And may God forgive me for loving them. I'm delighted to be here at Hartford. I've always admired the vision of Hartford Seminary. And in fact, before I came, I posted a rare note on Facebook to say how excited I am to give my first lecture before an interreligious audience. And I'm very excited to learn from you. When I was assigned the book of Job, to become the book of Job, I thought I would write the Hebrew text, which is my main text. I'll write a standard commentary on the book. Philological, literary, theological. And then I encountered all these different interpretations in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. In the visual arts, over 3,000 pieces of artwork on the book of Job. In literature, in music, Sister Winter would appreciate that. Lots of music on Job. I thought, what am I going to do with this? I have no training whatsoever. And I have no idea what all this means. And then I went to the museum, the National Museum in Taiwan, which has the largest collection of landscape paintings anywhere in the world. You know, the Chinese paintings typically will have one stamp, or maybe two stamps. Well, some of these paintings had like 40 stamps on them. Can I get this to work?
I think you got to point to your computer.
Where's the computer?
Over there, in the back.
That way. It worked before.
Okay, let me see. Yep, this way. You got this there.
So here are some examples of such paintings. And you notice that there are different scripts representing different views, even contradictory views. See, all these different stamps. So an artist might come along and paint a painting and then put a poem and a stamp. And the painting gives you a cue as to how to read the painting. Somebody else might come along and put another stamp, another poem. Or an emperor might come along and say, Emperor so-and-so viewed it and he liked it. All these different views become part and parcel of painting's value. To the Chinese, the value of painting does not reside only in the original artist's intention. It resides in the conversation that it invites. So that was my aha moment. So this is why we do all these different interpretations. Because we are doing conversational exegesis. The book of Job is like that. The book of Job is like that. It's interpreted through the ages in a great variety of ways. And I want to illustrate that by looking at Job's wife. The case of Job's wife, she says, the Hebrew has it literally, you still hold fast your integrity. Bless God and die. Now, most of you may remember her as saying, curse God and die. But that's not what the Hebrew says. It says, curse God and die. What the Hebrew word may be taken at face value to curse, or it may be a euphemism to bless, which is to curse. And so this verb occurs 6 times in the prologue, and the reader must negotiate its meaning every time. So did Job's wife say, bless God and die? Or did she say, bless God and die? Well, the dominant view in Christianity is extremely negative. Says one interpreter, she was allowed to live so that she could tempt Job. She was a second Eve. Or she was the tongue of Job's wife was Satan's new weapon. She is Satan's helper, says Augustine. Satan's mouthpiece, a fiend from hell, says Calvin. This is typical throughout history. And Jews, while not so vitriolic, also held similarly negative views. Not quite as vitriolic as Christians, but this kind of view of Job's wife. So here you have a picture of, who is this in the middle? You've been to Sunday school, you think that's Jesus. And there's some value to that. So here is Job looking like Jesus, Satan on one side, and Job's wife on the other. She whips him with her words, he whips him with his temptation. Another picture again, Job looking like Jesus, Job's wife on one side, Satan on the other side. Here's a picture from the 15th century. You have Satan tempting Jesus, Job's wife tempting Job. Far and away, this was the most common view through most of Christian history. But I wanted today to give a minority report. Along with these anti-feminist views, there are strands in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam that view her positively. Let's begin with the Old Greek, sometimes called Septuagint, but probably called Old Greek. The Old Greek is a translation of the book, the first translation of the book, the first interpretation of the book, really. It's a Jewish translation done in Alexandria. It turns out that this version is 20% shorter than the Hebrew text. And it also shows that when you read the Old Greek, Job is much more pious, much more humble, and God is more benign, more benevolent in the Greek version of Job. So it's 20% shorter, but in two places there's an expansion. And the first expansion is where Job's wife speaks. Now in the Hebrew text, it says simply, she tells Job, bless God and die. In the Greek, after much time, so she's not speaking out of impulse, something impulsive. After much time had passed, his wife said to him, how can you keep doing this? And she says, I wait a little while yet, expecting the hope of my salvation. And don't you think you should consider my part as well? After all, I'm the one who gave birth to these children. Why should you be the one who get all sympathy? As for you, you sit there around, the rottenness of your flesh. She goes on and on and on, you see. And then she said, but say some word unto the Lord and die. She does not say curse God, she said, say some word unto the Lord. So she does not say curse God. And the Greek translator has a sympathetic view to her as far as the suffering is concerned. And we have the Testament of Job, a Jewish work, 1st century BCE or CE. It's a Jewish work, and Job's wife is named Sitidos, which means in Greek something like bread giver. She waited 48 years before speaking up. So, compare who's the patient Job? In how many chapters of the book was Job patient? 2. But she, 48 years. And she supported Job self-sacrificially so she went to take jobs to support her husband. And when they ran out of money, she sold her hair, cut her hair, unconcerned about her shame. What good is my hair compared to my hungry husband, she says. So she supported Job unwaveringly. Then, after 48 years, finally she says to Job, say some word unto the Lord. So Jewish interpreters then interpreted the say some word unto the Lord in different ways. Did she say, pray to God and then die before you end up cursing? Or did she say curse? So there are different ways to interpret say something unto the Lord. Well, the Testament of Job and the Greek translation were the main texts of Job for early Christians. Here is a catacomb painting And Job is sitting here like a Stoic philosopher. He's always presented in the early church as a Stoic philosopher. And Job's wife holding her nose with her skirt because it stinks, but also holds to Job on a stick. She holds to him a piece of bread. See? So this is brought from the testament of Job, where she keeps feeding him despite his offensive smell. Okay. Another painting. Here's Job's wife. Do you think she says, "Curse God and die here"? No, she's comforting, right? And she holds a piece of bread and steak, sustenance. And Job is sitting. In the first 500 years, Job is always portrayed as a macho man. You do not get an emaciated Job until 600. Because the testament of Job says Job is a wrestler, a courageous athlete. And so Job is always presented as a strong man until 600 BCE. So she's comforting Job. Here's a picture from that sarcophagus. Job is sitting, dignified, like a Stoic philosopher, unconcerned about worldly things. He's a Stoic. And his wife, notice her hair is shorn. She sold her hair to buy food to support her husband. Here's a picture, reconstruction of a statue, of a sarcophagus. See? Notice her hair has been shorn. So this thing of a testament of Job, she holds a piece of bread. And isn't it interesting? There's a cross marked on a piece of bread. What do you think that means? Eucharist. This piece is lost, but the archaeologists managed to draw the pictures before they lost the piece. And two pictures juxtaposed. What's the scene here? Huh? Yeah. For which one? For which text? From Gospel of John, chapter 4, Jesus at the well, Samaritan woman. Now look at Jesus here, and this is Job. Samaritan woman, Job's wife, holding a piece of bread. She imparts the living water. He imparts the sustenance. She imparts the sustenance of God. So a positive view of Job's wife. Here's one of 11 manuscripts from medieval period. Again of Job. The friends cannot stand to be with him because he stinks. And even though she stinks, she holds the nose with the skirt. She nevertheless extends to him water or wine. Here is a 11th century manuscript called the Theodore Psalter, and illustrating Psalm 113, the text that says, God raises the poor from the dust, God lifts up the needy from a dung heap. But how does God do that? Here's God, and here's Job on a dung heap. It says in Greek, Job's on a dung heap, and Job's wife. You see? So this is how God supports the needy, through faithful women like Job. Now this is not just an iconography. We find this in Christian texts as well. There was a sermon preached in the 4th century by Aristeas of Amathea on divorce. And apparently there was quite a few divorces in the congregation, and Aristeas wanted to stop it. And so he started. So, such a one too we find the wife of Job to be. For all had left him. With the loss of his wealth, his flatterers departed from him. His friends too limited their friendship by duration of his prosperity. They were with him only when he was rich. Everybody abandoned him, but not his wife. You see? Right? If they were present at all, they came only to reproach, not to cheer him. Instead of comforting him, they aggravated his calamity. By reason of it, indeed, all his comforters uttered indignant complaints against him. But she alone, who had before lived in splendor, sat with her husband upon dunghill, scraping of discharge from testament of Job. She She's out there scraping his wounds. She's stuck with him. See? And she, unlike the friends, she's stuck with him. She was a partner of his, not only in prosperity but in suffering. See? And she was his only blessing. So the point of the sermon is you must not divorce your wife, because wives can love you that much. She did not even care. She goes on, you see. On account of a lofty and superlative affection of her husband, she loved her husband so much, she did not care if she blasphemed. She loved him so much, she only cared that his suffering stopped. See? So you must not divorce your wife, because your wife can love you that much. So here's a text, a sermon by a preacher who was much admired, including Gregory the Great, called him a great preacher. Here's a picture Bible taken from northern France, or 13th century, northern France, now in the museum in the Netherlands. Who's this? Huh? Mother Mary. But it's a picture of Job and his wife. See, the family have all died, right? The family have died, he's lost his property. There's Job, and she has a halo. And she's healing Job. See? So clearly a positive view of Job's wife. Here's another picture. See, here's Job, and here she is with bread and wine, even though the devil's behind her. Here's another one. Notice she's named, has a halo, holds to him communion. Bread and wine, it seems. This is a remarkable picture. This was found in a Coptic church in Abu Makar in Egypt. And in the inner sanctum, where women were not allowed, there are all these scenes of the sacrament. And among the scenes of baptism and so forth, here you have Job's wife with a halo, with a stick carrying bread and wine. So here she is serving communion in the inner sanctum where women were not allowed. This is a 15th century manuscript, now in the Pierpont Morgan Library in New York. And this scene, you see Job looking very much like Jesus again, his arms crossed, his wife standing behind him in the same posture, right? She wears a white wimple and she has her arms crossed like him. Now let's look at this is the same manuscript. In the same manuscript, we find the Virgin Mary with the arms crossed, a sign of piety. So Job's wife is portrayed that way. A pious woman, just like Job, who is just like Jesus. And on top of that, she wears a wimple. Now to get into this, I had to do some research on fashion. And by the 14th century, wimples have fallen out of fashion. So only saints and the Virgin Mary wore wimples. And here she is wearing a white wimple. Now who is this other woman standing next to her? See? And the background scene, here she is again, she has walked all the way here. And who is this guy over here? And what does he have on his head? We'll come back to that. Here is in the border, we find those women again. See? The one who's like Job's wife, Mary and Martha. You see? Witnessing the possibility of resurrection. So here too, these two women are witnessing the possibility of resurrection. This guy here is the patron of the painting. He paid for it. And that's his wife. That's his wife. And this is a prayer book illustrating Psalm 5. You doom those who speak lies, deceitful people whom the Lord abhors. Oh Lord, lead me along your righteous path. And here she is, see, what a righteous path. And here is Satan disguised. He's wearing a hat disguising his horns. Many of you can see the horns already. Disguising his horns. But if you are faithful, if you're faithful on your journey, like Job and his wife, if you have him as a model, you too will be able to avoid the deceitful who try to tempt you. So I looked around for positive view of Job's wife, and I found in the 14th century there was a German mystic named Gehman from Fritzlar. Von Fritzlar argues that Job's wife was a model of a loving and supportive wife. All men envy Job for having such a wife. Around the same time, in the 15th century, we have a person named Geoffrey de la Tour, who wrote a book called The Book of the Knights. And this book was written for his 3 daughters, to teach them how to be virtuous women. And Job's wife was a model of a virtuous woman to this writer. Just keep this in mind so I can come back to it. So she was a model of a good person. And the only thing Job did wrong was that he was not nice to her. Okay. So Job was a saint, but the only thing that was wrong was that he was not nice to her. So keep this in mind when we come back. So she was a model of a good woman. Here we have a poem from the 15th century called The Life of Job. And this Job again says that basically that God was angry at Job because the only thing that Job did was he was not nice to his wife. Okay. So God was angry at Job because he did not treat his wife nicely. So God rebuked him for being mean to his wife. Job's wife in Islam is always viewed positively. She known by different names. One of the names most prominently mentioned is Rahmah, mercy. Rahmah is a term used for God's mercy. Okay. So when Aaron could not speak, okay, when Moses could not speak, Aaron speak for him. Aaron was God's Rahmah. The prophet was God's Rahmah. And here Job's wife was called Rahmah, mercy. She's the ideal Muslim wife. Okay. She's the ideal Muslim wife, supportive of her husband at all costs. She was a paragon of patience in Islam. And she carries Job around on his back everywhere he went. So she carries Job around and get food for him, and took extra jobs. And then Job said, "Oh, I want to pray. And to pray, I need a prayer hut." So with Job strapped on her back, she builds a prayer hut for Job. And then while she goes out, she finally had to sell her hair. And she came back, her hair was shorn. And Job was offended. How could you have cut her hair? He needed her hair to pull himself up to pray. So he rebuked her. But she was fully supportive of Job. She builds a prayer hut, sells her hair to support Job. So entirely positive view of Job's wife. There's no negative of Job's wife in Islam. And she became the key to Job's survival. So, in this story, she encounters Iblis. Iblis is the enemy of God. So the first time she encounters Iblis is disguised as a physician. And so she tells Iblis, "Oh, my husband's very sick. What can I do?" She tells the story, and Iblis says, "Oh, yes, she can just go back and slaughter a bird and eat it without giving thanks to Allah." So she tells Job, "This is what I'm going to do to be well." She says, "Oh, you silly woman, don't you know that's Iblis in disguise? You mustn't do this." So she goes out. Then she meets a man, Iblis again, this time disguised as a donkey driver. So she and this man gets into a theological conversation. And she says, she's in despair. And sometimes I wonder, whether, I wonder why God allows my husband to suffer like that. And Iblis says, the donkey driver says, "Well, sometimes I wonder whether there's a God in heaven who knows everything. There's a God on earth who doesn't quite get it. What do you think?" "I don't know." She's to ask her husband. He's a prophet, you see. So she comes back and asks her husband. And he said, "Oh, you silly woman, don't you know that's Satan in disguise? When I get well, I will beat you with 100 lashes," he says. "Oh, my love, you will get well. You can beat me with 200. She says. She was not a feminist. "If only you will get well, I'm so happy you can beat me with 200, she says. So in the Islamic art, this is a Farsi manuscript. She's always quoted. There are 15 manuscript illustrations of Job in the medieval period. In fact, 15 are extant. And here is Job, Ayub, and Job's wife is with him, Rahman, and Gabriel. And then when he's restored, Gabriel gives him a fruit of paradise, half of which belongs to him, to Job, and half belongs to her, because it was as much her faithfulness as Job's. Minority Report. Here's another picture. See, she's always with him. I believe that in all 15 manuscripts, she's always with him, sharing the rewards of paradise. What about 100 lashes? Well, God thought of that. And basically God said, look, are you over there? There's some soft grass. Why don't you take 100 and bind them and gently hit her once? So God took care of her. Now, there's an Alhamiado version. Okay? The Muslims of North Africa, they were called Moriscos by Christians, little Moors. They were Muslims who were forced to convert to Christianity. And many of them, most of them kept their Islamic faith. They hid the Quran on the floorboards, the walls, and ceilings, and they practiced their Islamic faith secretly. Well, 300 years later, one of the houses was discovered and they found an Ahmadiyya version of Job. And it's focused on Rahma, and she is shown to be a woman of extraordinary faith. A pious woman, ideal Muslim wife. She keeps the family intact, and then the text says, God at the beginning tells Satan, well, here is, you can do whatever you like with Job, with Ayub, but two things you must not do. First, you must not harm his tongue. Why is that? So he can be free to curse or bless God. But second thing, you must not harm his wife, because she's his help through my help. This in contrast to Augustine's view. To Augustine, Job's wife was Satan's helper. See? But in the Muslim view, she was God's helper. See? God's help is mediated through Job's wife. This is interesting because the Moors were forced to convert to Christianity when the Spanish Christians came back down, Reconquista. And so the Moors went into hiding. And so the men were out there, some of them had died, some of them were in hiding. And so the women were the ones who stayed home to preserve the family. And so this story that lifts up Job's wife was very important. Because a woman was the one who preserved the faith at home. She is the manifestation of God's mercy, according to this text. Here's a famous piece, the Yahbach altarpiece by Albrecht Dürer in the 16th century. So altarpiece. On this side, there are two musicians. Does anyone recognize this person? That's Albrecht Dürer himself. Albrecht Dürer likes to paint himself in the paintings. And he especially likes to paint himself as Jesus. And so here is the young musicians comforting Job. But art historian Sephora Gittai says of this painting, she, Job's wife, is not a compassionate woman, but rather a contrary woman who scolds her husband. And Dürer intended to contrast the fidelity, the friendly spirit of the musicians with the spite of Job's wife. Now, do you see discontinuity or continuity? There's continuity, right? So here she sees these as friendly, but she sees her as mean. Does she look mean to you? Well, it turned out that all Dürer scholars think she's mean. So I thought, no, this cannot be right. So I called up an art historian at the University of Princeton and said, well, I'm not really an expert on Dürer. You should call Jeffrey Hamburger at Harvard. He knows all about biblical art and so forth. So I called Hamburger and he said, well, I think it's a negative view of Job. He said, but I'm not expert on Dürer. You should call Joseph Corner in Vienna. So I emailed Joseph Corner in Vienna. I said, no, there's no question about it. She is mocking Job by pouring dirty water on him. But I'm a stubborn man. So I investigated what Bibles did Dürer use. And one Bible that he used was the Gröninger Bible in 1485. We know that Dürer visited the bookshop of Gröninger in 1490 or so. And here is a picture of the Gröninger Bible where Job's wife stands behind him. Positive or negative? Second Bible he used is this one. This is by Anton Kohlberger. We know he must know this piece because Kohlberger was his godfather. Was Kohlberger's godfather. And he learned woodcut from him. And here is Job's wife, positive or negative. Here's the third Bible that Dürer used. He tells us himself, the Frentel Bible. And there's Job's wife, positive or negative. So I was pretty sure by now that I've got a thesis. But you remember the story I told you about this piece. This piece was translated into German, where she's a model of a good wife. It was translated in German in 1493 as the Ritter from Thurn, okay? Right? The Knight from the Tower. And this piece had 46 woodcuts that accompanied it. Guess who did the woodcut? Dürer. Now all our historians knew that Dürer had the woodcuts, but did not know the content of this book. And the content of this book had a positive view of Job's wife. So I'm pretty sure that Dürer had a positive view of Job's wife. What about this piece? This was a piece that got me started. I saw a book by Sister Wendy, Introducing Art History. And here's this piece. It was originally unnamed. So scholars call this, art historians call this, St. Peter delivered by an angel. But in 1937, two art historians independently noticed this. It's a broken part. Aha! This must be a picture of Job and his wife. So this cannot be an angel. She must be mocking Job. And so it went for the first time, 1937, in an exhibit in Paris entitled Job Mocked by His Wife. For the first time, 1937. Well, so subsequent interpreters then argued this. Art historians Nicholson and Wright say she is a Lady Macbeth of a wife whose arm is hovering like a thread above her husband's head. And Christopher Wright later on write, she's depicted as a shrew. And Job himself is seen as a pathetic old man, helpless against his wife's unthinking tirade. This is from her. Here she is in unthinking tirade against pathetic husband. So this is what got me angry. I often do research when I'm angry. Because I saw this book that Job mocked by his wife. He's just not mocking him. So I had to do research. So Job's wife is supposedly towering over her husband, dominantly and threateningly. So I began to do research into Latour. Here's a picture of Latour, painting of Latour, called The Dream of St. Joseph. St. Joseph was being delivered by an angel. Notice her gesture of her left hand, compare the gesture of Job's wife. Right? Here's a picture of the Virgin Mary. Notice her dress. Another picture of Mary in this red dress. And this is Saint Irene. Job was frequently compared with Saint Sebastian, because Saint Sebastian was killed by arrows. And so Saint Irene is the one who lives with arrows from him. You see? Right? And she's a merciful woman. The red dress again. Another picture of Saint Irene in the red dress. Unsteady flame, because at that point it was not sure if Saint Sebastian would survive. Now I look at all the dresses in Latour's painting, and only Saint Irene, the Virgin Mary, and Job's wife wears the red dress. So back to this picture. Here's a picture of Job's wife with a steady flame. There's a dissertation written on Latour's on the flame in Latour's painting. And this scholar concluded, in Latour's painting, a steady flame is always an indication of divine presence or steady faith, with only one exception. This one. And you see how we begin to read the Bible. You see, our prejudices inevitably come into play. So we hear Job's wife, immediately we assume a shrew, a nag. Others, here's Blake. In Blake's painting, Job is never depicted by himself. He's always depicted with his wife. Job's wife is the feminine side of Job. She's always with him. See? Job's wife, always with him. What about her name? She is nameless in the Bible, but people could not resist giving her a name. In the Testament of Job, she is Sitidos, bread giver. In Islam, she is Rahman, mercy. In the first silent movie on the book of Job, 1919, she is named Esther. Robert Frost calls her Thyatira. Archibald MacLeish calls her Sarah. Yvette Nolan calls her Grace. And Robert Heinlein, Margareta. We cannot resist giving her more of a role, identity. And several of these, by the way, are positive views of Job's wife. But in a book, in a thoughtful little book by a Lebanese scholar, called The Wife of Job, she argued that it's important that Job's wife be unnamed. So don't try to name her. Because Job's wife is every woman. She's every Muslim woman, every Christian woman, every Jewish woman. So she must be unnamed. Job's wife, to her, says, bless God, and means it. So, back to our text. In 2:10, she says, you speak as one of the outrageous. Whether it's a question or not is unmarked in Hebrew. She simply says, you speak as one of the outrageous. Shall we receive only good from God, but not evil? So did she say, bless God? Or did she say, bless God? Or those who argue that she says, bless God, no doubt will turn to 2:10, where Job says, oh no, we mustn't do this. We must receive from God good and evil. We mustn't, do this. And yet in 3:10, it says, afterwards Job opened his mouth and cursed. In other words, Job did exactly what he set out to do. You see? So Job's words can be read as ironic. So did Job's wife say, bless God and die? Or did she say, bless God and die? I leave that to you. Thank you very much.